Good evening. Today is April 25th, 2024, and the time is 6:30 p.m. I will now call the regular meeting of the District 191 Board of Education to order. Welcome to those in the audience and those that are watching this at home online. Director Word, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Hume, seconded by Director Alt. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The motion carries unanimously. All right, we'll start off this evening's meeting with a report from members of our Student Performance and Achievement Committee on the subject of college and career readiness and graduation rates from Amina Afado, Director of Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment. We'll be joined by Becky Ackerson this evening, Associate of Arts Coordinator and Counselor, and a couple of Burnsville High School students. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Chair Miller. Dr. Battle, members of the board, thank you so much for this opportunity to share a report, which is an update on the world's best workforce goals focused on students completing their educational journey with us. Joining me this evening is Ms. Becky Ackerson, Associate of Arts Coordinator and Counselor, Mariana Jimenez, Burnsville High School student, and Nick Vitez, Burnsville High School student. And so I'm very excited to have them share with us this evening. But first, we will review. Thank you. First, we will review the goals of the World's Best Workforce and the Achievement Integration Plan and provide you with information around two of the indicators of our district strategic roadmap, graduation and the enrollment and completion of rigorous coursework at Burnsville High School, and then share the perspectives and voices of our students working in the Burnsville High School Associates of Arts degree. First, a brief reminder that the World's Best Workforce goal is that all students are ready for career and college and that all students graduate. Then, using the lens of our achievement integration goals, looking at racial and economic integration and equitable educational opportunities, we will examine some key data points. Looking first at the trend in four-year graduation rates from the past 3 years, we see little significant changes in the overall percentage of students graduating on time for the state and for our school district. There was a significant increase in the percentage of students at the Burnsville Alternative High School, however, from 46% graduating with the within 4 years with the class of 2022 to 55% for the class of 2023. There also is a note of a significant drop of the rate of four-year graduation for Virtual Academy from the class of 2022 to the class of 2023, which may be an indicator for a closer review of the asynchronous instructional model as a fit for some of the students who enroll in that particular option. BHS did see some drops in the student demographic groups, such as the Black and African American students, and did see some minor gains for our Latino students who had lost ground significantly in the previous year. So it was good to see some of those gains, and hopefully people are reclaiming some of the graduation rates in those areas. There were also some small gains for our English learners, but fairly steady reports for four-year graduation for students served in special education and those eligible for free and reduced meals. Seeing the small increases for the English learners, students who are English learners, really did reflect some of the supports that we have seen at the high school as well. This year, there have been some additional supports for students at the three secondary sites, including continuing the staffing that provides students with access to credit recovery at BHS during the school day. This was something that we put in as a COVID recovery means, and we continue to see the results of that in a very powerful way. This year, BHS has also been working with a project manager focused on service to English learners and multilingual students. This added resource, who has been teaming with counselors, social workers, and teachers, has provided some additional support for students and their families to access resources and keep students on track for graduation. One of the main strategies is putting together graduation plans for students as they enter, for students who may come at different points during the school year or during their high school actual studies. The staff of BHS and BOZ have also continued to work to develop a collaborative partnership for early identification. This helps to find those students who are not on track to graduate at BHS as early as possible and create options, which may include BOZ, to assist them in accessing the resources before the credit deficit is too large to overcome within the 4-year span. BOZ has also added an academic interventionist this year to provide academic assistance to students and keep students on track, offering additional support to the monthly meetings that the students have with their advisor and do their credit checks. Moving forward, we'll be seeing the implementation of the BHS 9th Grade Academy to address continuing issues with students transitioning from 8th grade to 9th grade, making sure that they get off to that strong start and acclimation to the high school. And while graduation rates are one indicator for the strategic roadmap, strategy 3, supporting and leveraging innovation to improve student outcomes and district culture, another indicator, the enrollment in rigorous coursework, is what happens along the way to graduation. So when we examine our data for our rigorous course enrollment by grade, we recognize that students may engage in rigorous coursework in multiple ways. They may engage in advanced placement, dual enrollment, and post-secondary enrollment options, or PSEO. For the purposes of this report, a course is considered rigorous if it provides the opportunity to earn college credit. Tonight we'll share the story of who was enrolled, what they chose to enroll in, and how they performed in those courses. First is recognizing when students begin engaging in rigorous courses, and this slide highlights that many of our students begin that journey as early as grade 9, with almost 17% of our grade 9 students enrolling in a rigorous college credit-bearing course already. And ending with at least 40% of our seniors participating in college-level rigor each day, which is great when we continue to see that figure rebounding from last year. So continuing to support and encourage active recruitment and support for students in those rigorous college courses. Our achievement and integration goal around rigorous coursework focuses on equity and access with the goal of reducing the underrepresentation of Black, Indigenous, and other students of color within the rigorous coursework. With a baseline of 17% as our disproportionality in the 21-22 school year, and the goal of no more than an 8% disproportionality by the 25-26 school year, we reached 14% at the 23-24 school year. I'd like to just please note the incorrect date in the slide, which lists it as 2022-23, and it should be 23-24. With our results for the 23-24 school year being 15%. That was a little convoluted, I apologize for that. I think what's encouraging too is to see those ongoing numbers for our students of color and growing in those different demographic groups, continuing to see that growth over the last 2 years of our Native and Indigenous students actively recruiting. And I also just want to give somewhat of an anecdotal shout out to the Indigenous Council, Student Leadership Council, and the work of our cultural liaisons and working with our Native and Indigenous students, really actively recruiting and sharing with students opportunities for them to engage in the rigorous coursework. There are multiple ways that students can engage in the college credit-bearing courses, and this slide demonstrates where students are making that selection over the last 3 years. One note is that College in the Schools is actually a specialized concurrent enrollment offering focused on the partnership with the University of Minnesota. while the other figure of 16% concurrent enrollment includes all of our other higher education partnerships, together making the total percentage of concurrent of dual enrollment to 27%. And finally, when examining the number of college credits that students earn, the significant number are coming to students through the dual enrollment, with 273 credits earned from the University of Minnesota and an additional 1,523 credits earned from our other higher ed partners. The advanced placement credits have greater portability, however, and those are available for students eligible to submit to the higher education institution of their choice rather than through transcripts. Assessing through the advanced placement is an option for students, and while students may opt to take the rigorous course, many students choose not to participate in the actual assessment. And then looking at the concurrent enrollment or dual enrollment options, I just want to note that this board has been incredibly supportive of the planning and the work around the implementation of the Associate of Arts degree opportunity for many years now. It is not something that we have as a school district entered into lightly. We have been thoughtful and really thought about how do we make sure that it fits within our strategic plan and aligns with our core values of access, equity, and student agency. And so this year, Burnsville High School has its first cohort of enrolled students. And here this evening to share more is Becky Ackerson, Program Coordinator, and students Mariana and Nick.
Good evening, members of the board. Dr. Battle, thank you for having us here. My name is Becky Ackerson. As Amina introduced me, I am the coordinator of the Associate of Art program, and with me is Nick and Mariana, two members of our first Associate of Art cohort. We're here and we're excited to be talking to you about the Associate of Art program pathway at Burnsville High School. The Associate of Art degree pathway allows students to earn a 2-year college degree from Inver Hills Community College for free. They're accessing these classes without having to pay for books, tuition, room and board, and all of the other things like transportation that come with earning a college degree. They engage in these courses during their junior and their senior years of high school. But they start preparing for them as early as middle school by engaging in honors classes and then, of course, AP courses when they enter the high school that they can start engaging in 9th grade. As first-year students in the Associate of Art pathway, they're taking about 10 college classes between their first and second semesters. These include Inver Hills English, Inver Hills Environmental Science, Inver Hills Mindfulness, Meditation, and Movement, CIS, University of Minnesota, American History A and B, as well as college electives that they get to choose. We have college electives in the area of health sciences, EMT and EMR, as well as education, sociology, and child growth and development, as well as education. Students within this pathway are able to choose kind of specialties in regards to their electives. Our college partners really make this possible, as well as the really fabulous and qualified teachers at the high school who can teach these concurrent enrollment classes. Most of the courses within this program are taken from the University of Minnesota under CIS, College in the Schools, as well as Inver Hills Community College, of course, which is also the the degree awarding institution. Students may or may not take classes from Normandale, Metro State, and DCTC, depending on their elective course choices. We have, I'm sorry, I can't really quite remember where we're at. We have 43 students in the first cohort currently. We had 50 students to start the year, so there's been a bit of attrition, partly because of changes in post-secondary goals in regards to the students, as well as some other things that happen in life. And as we look at our numbers from the class of 2025, which is where these two students are coming from. So again, 41 students currently in the pathway, 53 students of color, specifically 7 Asian students, 7 Black students, 8 Asian students. Oh, that must be a typo. That is a typo. 7 Asian students, 7 Black students, 8 Asian students, and 19 white students. I apologize for my typo. I'm also taking into consideration gender identity. We know that's a very important part of these young people's lives. 1 non-binary student, 24 female, and 16 male students. We also noticed that more females tend to engage in concurrent enrollment or rigorous courses, and we're definitely taking that into consideration as we are recruiting for our next year's student involvement. In our class of 2026, next year's students who will start engaging in this program, we have 42 total interested students and 24 committed. That number of 24 has actually changed to 30 since the last time I wrote these numbers down, and that's only been about a week. So it changes quickly, and lots of students are very interested, students and families, very interested in this opportunity. We can see that our students of color participating in this program is growing. 66% of students interested in the pathway next year are students of color. 8 Asian, 13 Black, 7 Latino, and 14 white. 3 of those are identified as multiple races or ethnicities. 2 non-binary students participating next year, 25 female and 15 male. So now we're going to hear from these lovely young people who will speak to the program more beautifully than I ever could. I have some questions that I'm going to ask them just to kind of guide our conversation. Do you mind if I sneak at this? Okay. So first question, why did you decide to participate in the Associate of Arts degree pathway? Nick, we'll start with you.
I first heard about it from my mom, and she thought it was a really good idea because college is really expensive. And my sister just started college at the U of M, and it's a lot of money. And I heard about it from a couple friends too, and they thought it was a great idea. And so I decided to join for the opportunity and people that were in it.
Thank you. Mariana.
Me personally, I agree with Nick. The money aspect was a big deal for me. Coming from a family, my dad, he didn't have the opportunity to go to college because of the money factor, so that really played a part in my decision. And the career path I want to go into is in the medical field, and that I know is a lot of years of college and work. So getting those 2 years off already as a high school student would benefit me a lot in the future, so that was one of my main reasons I took the program.
Something I didn't mention that I should have is this is a really transferable degree. It's an accredited degree from an accredited university, transferring to any college or university across the nation that accepts incoming credits, which is most of the colleges and universities across the nation. Thank you. Question number 2, what prepared you for this pathway?
I'll start. I took a lot of advanced classes my freshman and sophomore year, and that kind of showed me the work that I was going to be given in these classes, but nothing can really, compare in your freshman and sophomore years to, the classes and the amount of work that you're going to get your junior and senior year.
Yeah, I agree. I think I took a lot of, rigorous classes as well. My freshman and sophomore year, I took honors and AP, and I agree. It didn't really compare to what it is now, but I think it definitely helped me to kind of get in the mindset of the work I was going to be given and the amount of time I would have to put in. I think that's what prepared me the most.
Great. Thank you. All right, question number 3, and I'll start with you, Marianne, if that's okay. What are your plans, and you mentioned this a little bit, what are your plans after high school? What are your career goals?
After high school, I plan to attend the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities, due to their well-known medical program. I want to go into pre-med and become a pediatrician. That's been one of my main goals since I was little. I really love kids, and it's really important to me that like they get the health care that they deserve. And I think this program will help me like build my, I guess, like trail on getting to that point.
Absolutely. Thank you. Nick?
I also want to go to the U of M, something in like the business, like something around that. But I mean, I'm not as planned out as Mariana is.
No one is. No one is. I'm going to switch order here a little bit and ask that last question first. We'll start with you, Nick, if that's okay. What support have you found in the Associate of Art pathway, and what is helping you succeed? Because they are wildly successful.
There's lots of support that I found. Friends and family especially, and teachers. Teachers help a lot, actually. You know, it's kind of hard to explain, like, I don't know how to say this, but I guess, like,
Community, right?
yeah, like, the community in the AA program is really great, and the friends that I've made and the people who can help me with things that I can't do as well as them.
Very well said. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, I agree. I think like having the amount of friends that I have in this program as well, and the ones that I've built, a lot of the classes I've had haven't had a lot of people I've known previously, but I've built a lot of connections with the new kids in the program. And the teachers have helped a lot, like the professors as well. We have a professor from Ember Hills that comes in, and they all are very supportive and very helpful, and they make sure we know that they will help us with anything, and they'll always be there to answer our questions. And yeah, I think we've just built a really good community between the students and Miss Ackerson and all of our teachers as well.
Thank you. I'd like to add that students who take and engage in concurrent enrollment courses have access to peer and professional tutoring for free through Inver Hills and the University of Minnesota. These two have not had to engage in that because they're just capable on their own, but it is available. Last question, my friends. What advice do you have for future Associate of Arts students that these lovely people can share with families and students as they have their conversations about educational opportunities?
I'll start. I think for me is that if you're unsure about it, you should just go for it. Mm-hmm. It's such a great opportunity to get those 2 years of college done and get a degree for it, because even if you weren't planning on going to college, or maybe you weren't sure if you were able to, again, for the money factor, being able to get that 2-year degree can get you a lot farther than you think. Mm-hmm. And especially doing it as a high school student, is so important too, and it'll help you not only learn like learning skills, but life skills as well. I've learned a lot with just the people and the teachers as well, so I think you should just go for it. It's going to be worth your while for sure.
You're right to claim yourself as a college student. You're a college student and a high school student. You are both. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nick?
Yeah, very well said. Just go for it. You can do it if you put the work in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree. And I would say that is shining through in our student success in the program. Their capabilities are higher than they ever imagined, and many of them were very nervous about entering the program. I was nervous about the program. It's an exceptionally rigorous opportunity, but they are rising to the occasion, and it's really wonderful to see. I feel exceptionally lucky to have this opportunity to work with these young people. I learn a lot from them. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Are there any comments or questions from board members? Director Werb?
First of all, I'd just like to say thank you for coming and sharing your experiences with us. I have to say that this is one of the, programs that I'm most excited about within our district, and having a future 9th grader and a future 6th grader, I feel very encouraged for them, because I'm going to start talking to them about this program now, and hopefully by the time they get to 10th grade, they'll be like ready to, enroll and do this because I want them to do it. But I think it's something that we should be, promoting to like our middle school students like right now. And I can only see this gaining momentum. You guys are like the guinea pigs, but I can see us like having, students that have gone through it coming back and talking to our students and saying, here's what I'm doing now, and just, showing how successful they become and how this, was such a great program that there's nowhere else that has this in the state. And I am very excited to see how this, grows within our district. So thank you for coming. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
One thing I'd also like to add is that even with the education that we're getting, I know one issue for a lot of students, or like a worry, was that they weren't going to be able to have the time to do their sports or extracurriculars. And from my experience, I play volleyball and I also do Olympic weightlifting. And even with those sports, at times it would be a little stressful, but no matter what, I still got my work done, and it was always still like, I always thought of it as a great opportunity, and I was able to do all of those activities as well. So another thing for future students is that if they're worried about missing out or not having time for those things, that they'll still have the time for those.
Other questions or comments? Director Connor?
Yes, I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank you also for coming. I'm, excuse me, like Anna, Director Werb was very excited about this program. I'm just so proud that our district offers it, and I really appreciate you guys coming and telling us about it. And I do hope, like she said, that you come back maybe 2 years or so, or after you graduate, and just tell us, how this experience really helped you in the real world out there and in your future college learning careers. So just excited about it. Thanks for coming. And I'm so glad you hit on that, because that was going to be my question about, were any of you in extracurricular activities, and did you have time for it? Because that's important too. So thanks for answering that.
Of course.
I can at least partially answer the extracurricular activity, because Nick is my son's tennis partner. They won their match earlier this afternoon, so congratulations, Nick.
Yes, congratulations.
I do have one relatively small question, I think. At this point, and kind of looking out into the future, what would you say is kind of the upper limit in terms of the number of students that can enroll in the program? And what's the process for identifying and selecting the students? And I'm sure it's much more complicated than you have time for, but like the very short version of the selection process.
Sure. I'm not sure that a limit exists besides FTEs. We want to fill classes, and that's what we're doing right now, is we are filling these college classes and even adding sections. Sarah Noble could speak to that. We have a large number of Inver Hills 11 sections going, as well as our other college courses, because I think in part of the AA program, students are enrolling in the pathway and our courses are expanding. How students are identified in a number of different ways. There's lots of recruitment happening at middle schools, as well as AVID classrooms and honors and AP courses at the high school, as well as communication and collaboration with teachers in every classroom at the high school, identifying students who are displaying increased capabilities and interest in higher rigor. So it's really a collaborative effort, but there's recruitment happening, but also these young people are recruiting as well by talking to their friends about what they're interested in and encouraging each other to try hard things.
Great, thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Woody, go ahead.
Well, I want to say thank you again for coming out tonight, and this is probably one of my first times ever hearing about the A program in action, so I really appreciate getting that insight, especially as me. I'm a student, I'm a dual enrollment student, so seeing the different comparisons is really interesting. I do have a few clarifying questions. First one is, are students following the liberal arts requirements at Inver Hills for graduation?
Yes.
For their aid?
We're following the AA Minnesota Transfer Curriculum goal areas, which is basically Inver Hills liberal arts requirements.
Gotcha.
A two-year community colleges version of liberal arts.
All right, gotcha. And then also in terms of like college or academic advising per se, are you the one mostly in charge of that, or do the students have access to the professors from the different institutions involved in the program?
I would say both. They have access to the professors of some of the courses that they're enrolled in. So environmental science, as well as their future art class, is going to be taught by Inver Hills professors in our building as we're working to qualify our teachers. They're pretty rigorous qualifications, which makes sense for concurrent enrollment classes in the high school. And so we're working on that qualification for biology and art right now. So they have access to those professors. And then, of course, the tutoring through the University of Minnesota and Inver Hills as well. I would say as far as academic advising, their counselors at the high school are also exceptionally helpful. They work with me quite a bit, as well as we're working on dedicating an Inver Hills academic advisor to support these Associate of Arts students.
Okay, that's awesome to hear. And then also, I know, bridging off of Director Hume's question about the requirements, is there any specific like merit requirements to get involved in the AA program?
So CIS courses, as well as Inver Hills courses, have GPA or class rank and sometimes other qualifiers in regards to entering the college classroom, but there are always little caveats to that. And instructor approval is the little asterisk. If a student is not meeting any of those qualifications, if an instructor at Burnsville High School stands up for that young person and says they can do it, then it's going to happen. And there's been a lot of conversation about that specifically amongst teachers in the Associate of Art pathway, and they all say, I am never going to stand in the way of a student accessing rigorous courses. And of course, that has to be met with equal support and parental involvement. And I think parental involvement and guardianship involvement is absolutely key.
Awesome. And then one final question. This is a little bit of a quick clarifying question. On slide 10, I believe, it talks about the enrollment, concurrent enrollment credits, and it mentions that 125 credits are not being earned. Is that based on like students not passing that specific class, or what's the threshold for that?
Is that this one?
Yep.
Let me
Okay.
tell you that, is that they don't earn the credits for the concurrent enrollment if they don't meet the minimum grade requirements required to earn that
All
credit.
right, gotcha. Thank you. That's all I got.
Other questions? Ms. Director Alt?
Thank you, Chair Miller. So I have a series of questions. We'll start with the Associate of Arts and then flip to the graduation rates. First, Becky, wanted to thank you because I think the fact that both students mentioned community speaks volumes to how you have shaped the program and how important community is in the high school, in the district, and it really helps to strengthen the program and the learning for our students. So thank you for doing what you do to have that present for the students. It's really, really important. More in the weeds. Okay, I think I know the answer to this, but I want to make sure that I'm clear. With the Associate of Arts, all classes are on-site at the high school, correct?
Yes, except for one elective. It's not a requirement, but Inver Hills Criminal Justice is an asynchronous taught course. You took that? But the professor from Inver Hills who teaches it often visits our building, well, 3 times a year, right? Once at the beginning, one is like a mid-check-in, and then once at the end of the year.
But it's asynchronous, so the students don't need to travel, I
Correct,
guess is
correct.
my point.
Yes, they never have to leave the
Okay,
building.
awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think that's most important is being able to give equitable access to the students in the school building without actually needing to get
Agreed.
wheels.
Agreed.
Exactly. talking about the program skewing more heavily female. Can you elaborate on that and on your comment that you're going to be mindful of that moving forward?
Yeah, it's I don't have a lot of background in it, but it's something I'm noticing. And it's also apparent when we pull our concurrent enrollment numbers. I don't know if I have a great answer to that or a solution to it, but as I am working with families and as I am recruiting students who aren't self-selecting, I think I'll be really mindful of speaking with young men and reminding them that they can do hard things.
Yes.
I don't have a perfect answer, but I think pushing young men to try something out of their comfort zone is something I am going to be working on.
I think nationwide, the percentage of female college students is right around that 55 to 60% range also. So it's pretty comparable to the typical college student anyway.
Well, and also just anecdotally, for whatever it's worth, having sat on the commencement stage and looking at, those who receive honors as graduates, that group of students also tends to skew more heavily female, which is just interesting. Again, don't know the answer to that question, but, certainly encouraging conversations with our young men to challenge themselves and,
Trust themselves,
trust
too.
themselves. Yep, you can do this.
Yep.
Thank you. And then, okay, then switching a little bit more to, this is kind of in between this conversation and then the graduation. It's interesting, this conversation between, the awesome things that we're offering in 11th and 12th grade, and then thinking about students coming into 9th grade and making sure that we can prepare as many of them for this offering. What % of students actually have access to rigor like this in 9th grade? And if you don't have the answer and you want to get back after the fact, that's fine. In terms of the CIS classes, the AP classes that are offered at 9th grade.
Well, in 9th grade, they can take advanced placement human geography or honors math, English, or science. And it's completely self-selection. So there are no barriers to a student entering those classrooms. So I'd say 100% of them have access to it.
Yep. Okay. And then this is probably more of a question for Amina. Thank you both. Always appreciate having our students talk to us because, as Becky said, you guys, students always do a beautiful job explaining your lives in our schools, and you give us such great speaking points about how we can speak to our community about our programs. So thank you both for being here. Really, really great to hear from you. Amina, just a question on slide 6. We're looking at declining graduation rates and the additional supports that, the expansion of supports. I know the answer is on that slide, right? We've expanded our supports, but we're not seeing it. We're not seeing improved grad rates. What else can this board, this district, the high school do for our high school students to improve our grad rates and make sure that our students are getting the learning and are earning the credits in 9th grade, in 10th grade, in 11th grade, and as seniors?
So it's a multifaceted piece, but I think there are a couple of things that are influencing some of the patterns that we've seen. One of the first pieces that we've seen is that we still have students who we need to do that early intervention with them in 9th grade. And I think a lot of credit to our high school administration as they start looking at what are those unique supports that they can provide to that 30-40% of our 9th graders who come in somewhat needing extra help acclimating to that high school rigor, the high school expectations, and I think they've had a tremendous amount of conversation. They have designed a system in which they are looking at those unique needs for those students, whether it's an overhaul and a push in for the Success 191 and changing the focus of what that course could be for them, and so that's an active piece that we're working on right now, to the structures that the high school administration is looking at in terms of building teams of teachers so that students don't lose that sense of community by being spread out across the giant school with lots of different teachers, but instead having that team, that cohesive team of teachers who focus almost exclusively on ninth graders. And so it's almost a bridge between that middle school kind of house piece and the sense of agency that you see with these students sitting here today, where they're making all of their own choices and decisions and stepping out, and that we need to create that bridge for them. And I think that that high school plan to build that ninth grade academy, which is an evidence-based program, we know research shows us that providing that bridge is one of those pieces that can help that credit deficit gap before it gets out of control. And so I think that's an important one. I think seeing the extra support and the partnership with BOZ is a real important one. And we talk a lot about BOZ, students going to BOZ already behind in credits, but I think that early intervention partnership, I just met with Principal Ron yesterday, again, talking about that cohesive partnership, meeting with the counselors regularly, looking at the list of students who are credit deficient, and making those early intervention decisions about what supports can students have at BHS, which supports can they have at BOZ, and how do we create that easy pathway back and forth so that students are getting those supports. And so that's a continued growth piece. And so when we see those increased numbers for four-year graduation rates for BOZ, you can see that some of that is that influence of students who are making that pathway back and forth. And so I think there are some things that, some of those patterns that we've seen coming forward that have been disconcerting, but I think there are active work happening, and I want to give lots of credit to our high school administration for looking at some of those pieces. Now, we don't see that come off, the support we give to ninth graders next year may not, but the support that we're giving to ninth graders this year with some of the initial pieces that they've done, we hope to see that as fewer students who are credit deficient as 10th and 11th graders. I think there's also a component too, a lot of work has been done this year under the leadership of Dr. Belmont of working with counselors, with teachers and administrators in the middle school and the high school, engaging our middle school principals and staff in that transition time. And really going through and being very deliberate about how we create that positive transition and for our students going from 8th grade to 9th grade, for their families, for the students. And it involves, one of those elements is registration, but it involves that really proactive piece about teaching the students and the families about the value and the importance of making that transition and how important it is not to let stuff get away from you in that first semester, that second semester of 9th grade. And so that's been some tremendous amounts of work that's been happening this year, and just outlining that transition plan for those students and being very deliberate about those things that are social emotional transitions, the academic transitions, the other word I'm missing is sports and activities transitions, because we know those are things that help ground students as well. And so all three of those components are things that Dr. Belmont has been working tirelessly over this past year to really build those connections between our middle school and our high school to support that transition. If we can reduce that credit deficiency, that loss in our 9th grade, then everything else can really be small enough to be filled in those. And so the other pattern that we're seeing, and I know it's something that this board has talked about too, is the attendance issue. And so we would continue to see that pattern of low attendance for our students. They become overwhelmed, they become disengaged for a variety of reasons, and really working on that attendance issue, because that's leading to students becoming credit deficient, and increased number of students becoming credit deficient because they are not engaged in the classroom. And so, so those are, it's multifaceted, and it requires a multifaceted approach. And I think that recognizing our numbers from last year, I mean, looking at those numbers and saying we need to be actively involved in that, to see that work from the high school administration, that partnership with BOZ, and that work from Dr. Belmont and that leadership from Dr. Belmont with middle school and high school staff are some of the initial pieces that that folks have been doing to start to address those numbers.
So a couple follow-up questions. Just to make sure I'm understanding. So it sounds like students choosing to go to BOZ, it could be a two-way street at this point.
Yes.
They go there, they get the supports, the family, we work with the student and their family. Sometimes they might choose to stay, sometimes they might choose to return to the high school and continue along.
Yes, and trying to make that as easy of a transition back and forth for those students as possible has been one of the goals for Principal Ron and her staff, is to just really make that so it's not like I'm choosing to leave the high school and permanently attend BOZ, but I know that there are supports at BOZ that I can access, and then how do I transition back?
And then, there was another question in there as well. The transition from 8th to 9th, and I'm sure you've answered this before, Amina, so forgive me. If there are, if there's a known cohort of students transitioning from 8th to 9th grade that need particular supports, it sounds like we are addressing that in the transition so that a student doesn't arrive at the high school and staff don't realize that, this person needs to have X, Y, and Z.
Right. And that's actually been part of that transition work that Dr. Belmont's been leading in the discussions with the middle school and the high school principals of saying, who are those students that we already have plans in place or we have known supports that are successful? How do we carry those forward and make sure that students don't go unknown or hidden to the high school, that they have that visibility, and that we don't have to wait for them to fail before they get those supports. And so those are active conversations. We're planning meetings. We're talking about looking at student profiles, all of those kinds of things in order to support those students that go forward.
That's awesome, because you've reminded me that, it's really important, that we not allow our students any student to fall through the cracks. And exactly this kind of work is what we need to do for students so that hopefully by the time they reach 11th and 12th grade, they will be able to benefit from programming like this, whether it's to continue with post-secondary or simply to have an associate's degree to go to work. So thank you for your.
Okay. Additional questions?
Nick and Mariana, you two are rising to the occasion. You're being an inspiration to the students in our district and in our community. It's not easy to be asked to be taking college credits and 2 years of it. And I think you're doing a great job in inspiring the next cohort of students. And Becky, I know you're gonna be, you're working hard and this is awesome. I can't wait to see the next year numbers. I'm pretty sure they're gonna be more than the 30 they are now. But I am already talking to my kids about it. It doesn't only save money for the parents, of course, but it also gives the students, like Mariana mentioned, 2 years ahead of, your peers. And I have actually a nephew in my family that has had an opportunity to do 2-year college. And I mean, his friends are still in school and he's already finished and working. Mm-hmm. And so this is a great opportunity. I can't wait for you guys to go into the real world and start working and start living your lives before your peers. So thank you so much for coming.
Any other questions? Yosefin, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Miller, members of the board. First, thank you, students. Thank you, Ms. Ackerson, for presenting tonight, and Director Oftedal. First, I just want to clarify, there are other school districts that have AA degree. We are the first in the state to offer the program on site. They do not have to travel. That's the difference. And so, Director Hume's question, I think that's an advantage, that they can participate in extracurricular, because they don't have to have that travel. Then just a comment about the last year's graduating class, this upcoming class, and Nick and Mariana, just to remind us all about the perseverance of these young people, of what happened in 2019, that they came back, they graduated, and I'm not sure if I was a 15 or 16-year-old, I would have persevered in my high school education with adults who had no experience dealing with a pandemic, so you didn't have your supports from us about what are we going to do, but we figured it out. And so I do want to commend those who persisted to graduation, those who had to continue this year as fifth-year seniors. Keep persevering. And so I do want to acknowledge that. It is disappointing to see lower graduation rates, but I'll speak for myself. I don't know if I would have come back to high school after being sent home. What the heck? So I just want to note that we are dealing with the COVID pandemic classes. And so just to acknowledge the families, to say the least, it was rough. So your teachers, all the support staff, the community, we owe it to you for your support. And I just wanted to note that as we get ready to graduate the class of 2024, I believe they were ninth graders. Is that correct? Eighth.
I was,
Oh, yeah, he knows 'cause
I can speak
So,
on this actually,
thank you.
but it is true that the class of 2024 did enter the Burnsville High School during the 2020-21 school year. So we were the first batch of students to experience online.
So thank you, Chair and members of the board. I just wanted to acknowledge that we not only survived, but we thrived as 191. So I want to commend you, the staff, and the community, too.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the student for joining us for tonight. I know this can be, I don't understand why, but I know it can be intimidating to come forward here, so thank you for coming tonight. The degree in question, so they're earning it through the earning college credit classes, right, accredited classes. Are they solely taking college accredited classes typically, or?
They're right now, all juniors in the program are taking high school math, and many of them also take AVID. Was your question, are they taking high school?
In order to do this, basically, are their junior and senior years entirely made up of college credits, is what I'm asking you?
Junior year math, and many of them take AVID, but senior year, it's mostly all college courses.
And then, even in traditional four-year college environments, many students enter in, get three-quarters of the way through, don't finish, for whatever reason. I'm assuming that the students in this program will most likely graduate from high school, but if they don't, is it kind of an all or nothing deal? I assume it would be to get the credit, the package, but I assume they also would still walk away with some bunch of college credits that would apply somewhere else if they chose a different path mid-senior year, say, or something.
Absolutely. It is not, accessing college courses is not an all or nothing situation, and I often have those conversations with families, because many young people look at the program as a whole and are quite overwhelmed. So they might choose to access some of the courses without feeling obligated to take them all. And I think we'll see our concurrent enrollment numbers grow even more in conjunction with the AA pathway, the degree pathway. But I think we'll just see more young people taking concurrent enrollment as a result of this program. We're offering more concurrent enrollment classes now than ever before to fulfill the AA degree requirements, but also more conversations with families and students are happening around earning college credit. I think in part because of how expensive college is getting, but also because it's a really big focus at the high school. Wouldn't you say oftentimes teachers and staff start talking about college credits and how can you prepare yourself better for the future, right? Isn't that our mission statement? Future ready. So Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
No, it is. I mean, my point is, college is often full of a lot more flexibility than traditional high school structure and comes with its challenges. So, for instance, what if a student got near to the end of their senior year and realized they hadn't taken the right course, or maybe they just had a life interruption or something? Are we prepared to let them come back next year for a semester and then graduate from high school? I don't know how we would, so that they can earn it, or would they need to go get that last credit at full rate at the community college? Or have we not even thought about that yet? Is it possible?
Well, if they're not earning the right credits, then I'm not doing my job right. So I hope that doesn't happen. I
Well,
don't
fair enough,
anticipate
but
that happening.
It's a lot of cats to herd, so to speak, right? So, I mean, I'm just wondering if there's scenarios that, are we going to be flexible in the confines of a traditional high school graduation environment to accommodate all the possible scenarios that might come along?
I think we absolutely will.
Okay.
Because we'll keep students at front of mind. So if we need to flex and make changes, absolutely, we're going to flex and make changes. And we will learn more about that as the program progresses. We've already made quite a few adjustments to the way that we're offering classes, kind of blocking schedules and bringing in college professors. So flexibility is essential in a program like this.
Good. I mean, I had a question on slide 10,
I'm
the
so
rigorous
sorry.
coursework, college credit earned.
These young
slide.
people have the ACT tomorrow and many,
Oh, please.
a lot of homework to do.
You've
Can we
already
release them? Is that
Well,
okay?
it's drawn extensively, yes, please. Thank you for your time.
Thank
Feel free
you.
to go.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Good luck on your ACTs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this slide, if I'm reading it right, let's take the middle bar, CIS. So there's 277 students that were being accounted for here. 4 did not earn credit. Is that, if I'm reading that correct, right?
That's the number of credits, not the number of students.
I see. Oh, earned credits, okay. Over what time period is this entire?
This is just this year. Or this is, yes, this is last year of credits
We
earned last
issued
year.
1,523 college concurrent credits? Holy moly.
I know. And it's very similar to last year.
Okay. I was under the impression, just reading this, that this was a lump of a couple of years. Okay.
No, this
How
is
do we-
1 year.
How do we not issue .5 credits, by the way, just out of curiosity? Or is that just a rounding thing?
It's a rounding number.
Okay. All right, very good. That's all I had. Any last final questions? Thank you very much for your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next, we will receive a report about 2024-2025 equity plan from Isis Buchanan, Director of Educational Equity, Dandra Brogue, Multilingual Project Manager, and Sahro Abdullahi, and Ryan Makanda, English learner teachers. Welcome. Assuming they're all here today? Oh, he's, okay. He's making a video. All right, very good.
Hello, Chair Miller, Dr. Battle, members of the board. Thank you for having us here today to share the educational equity plan. We are going to quickly touch on the vision for equity in our district, data that links to that, and then going to a review or overview of the draft of our plans for the next year, and then spend some time talking about some of the projects that we've been doing that are innovative, and that's what the guests will help share. So I wanted to start first with just a definition of equity in education, and really it's looking at the policies we have in place and plans we've had in the past, and focusing on this principle of ensuring that all the students have access to the resources and support and opportunities that they need to succeed academically, regardless of their background or circumstances. And so rooted in Policy 105, which I think in 2019 the board adopted, the work in this plan aligns with that equity, access, and excellence in education policy. And we really want to focus on ensuring and fostering academic excellence for all students. And so the vision for our work It's not something that we're creating. A lot of these things are already in place. And so I tried to summarize it by, looking at information that we already have here. But our CPSS work aligns with that, with our efforts and policies to ensure that access. And we are dedicated to valuing the diversity that our students bring to us and continuing to have those high academic standards for students. Quickly, to just show our enrollment data, you can see as you look here at our race and ethnicity of our students that 70.7% of our students are students of color or Black, Indigenous, or people of color, and 29.3% of our student population is white. Over the past 10 years, we've seen an increase in the number of BIPOC or diverse students and a decline in our white student enrollment. And then overall, looking at the other categories that some students may also fall into as English learners, students who have IEPs or free or reduced price lunch, you can see that about 1/5 of the students have IEPs, and 67% of our students qualify for free or reduced price lunch, which suggests that we have some level of variability with the socioeconomic diversity in our district. And the data also leads us to have, to make sure we have a multifaceted approach to meeting the needs of the diverse learners that are coming to us in our district.
Our district continues to show an increase in our multilingual students. Our highest rates of enrollment in terms of birth country is the United States, Venezuela, Mexico, El Salvador, and Ecuador. Our data shows that the language levels of our English learners are mostly level 1s, so those newer to learning the English language, and level 3s, which are those that are developing in their academic language and core content areas. And this data aligns with our district-wide focus on comprehensible input and increasing students' use of academic language in the classroom.
Yeah, and then as you can see here, we do have a lot of students who speak a lot of different languages in our district. And I just wanted to highlight that a lot of our staff and students who speak those languages, when they know that there are other people, it's amazing to see the connection and the smiles that come, and people really wanting to connect with other people who may, also speak their native language. For staff demographic data, like I was able to ask the human resources team to share this with me, and just looking at the different race and ethnicity groups here, you can see that 82% of our staff in our district are white, and 18% of the district staff members are people of color or Black, Indigenous, or people of color. Our student and staff demographics don't align. But we continue to work to recruit, retain, and grow diversity in District 191. And on social media, I just saw that there's a Black male student who is a high school student in our district who's graduating as a teacher and already has a job at Eagle Ridge. So we're trying to grow our own at the same time, too. So next, I'll just go into, and I'm not going to read all of this to you, you've had a chance to review it, but just trying to share some highlights. But supporting our equity teams helps systemically promote equity and inclusion across our district, and then monitoring the use of that with the Equimetric survey, which I think you've heard about earlier at some of our other meetings, but we really want to collect data about how staff are feeling about our culturally proficient school systems work, and then using that data to gain insights into places that we can continue to grow our work with diversity, equity, and inclusion.
We've also been leaning into our CPSS lesson look-fors and creating that alignment between our instructional practices and working to shift there. Implementing strategies to support our multilingual and neurodiverse learners, along with being culturally responsive and relevant, is important to our students. It's important to having windows and mirrors for our students. It's also important to see cultures different from our own and to develop that criticality, and just that we're continuing to work on removing barriers that impact student learning and looking for ways to recruit and retain diverse staff.
So another piece here is just increasing diversity and representation across our district on some of our different parent groups and teams. And so we're just continuing to actively recruit so that we have those diverse perspectives as part of our affinity groups and other groups in the district. We continue to work with our district teams on the different parent groups that we have. The PTOs at our school sites, the district meetings that we have with our Somali-speaking and Spanish-speaking parents. And so we're trying to really look at this by having more than just one way for parents to connect, but trying to have more ways to really enhance that experience. Some of the work in this, the 2 action steps that are on this slide, focus on us really spending time to learn. And so learning about our indigenous learning more about indigenous heritage and culture, as well as creating those inclusive learning spaces that allow all students to feel that they're represented, valued, and really just enhances learning. And we just saw those 2 students today, but when students can show up as who they are, they're going to do better in school. And finally, this last slide has the final 2 action steps, which is really about reflecting and evaluating our work. And so things that we're hoping to establish would be having equity walkthroughs, again, the equimetric surveys, aligning this work with the world's best workforce and achievement and integration. Some of these things can't come apart. Director Oftedal just shared that. And then also excited to try some new things like having stay interviews for our BIPOC staff in our district and learning more about why they choose District 191 and stay. And then just continuing to look for ways to improve like staff satisfaction and retention so that we're able to continue to have positive school culture within our district. So some of the staff recruitment and retention efforts I just wanted to highlight here is just really attending college fairs, putting our job postings on some of the historically Black colleges and universities sites, hosting student teachers. We also have been hiring international candidates, and then really just supporting our Grow Your Own program. And I think, I'm not sure when Director Funston will be back, but I know that there's been a lot. I've met a lot of staff in our district who have let me know that they're a part of that connection. And I just feel like they have a lot of pride. And, you know, I think it's exciting for us to have that opportunities to build. And so now I'm going to turn it over to the other team members here. And I'm going to start with one of our teachers from the high school, Mr. Winterland, who's going to just share a little video. It's my first time doing this publicly, so hopefully the video works.
Hello, my name is Jeff Winterland, and I share the ML Department lead role at Burnsville High School alongside Andrea Parent. Our team is 10 strong this year, including Mel Persons, Nina Mookgreen, Eduardo Edmondson, Sarah Wakalaki, Sarah Leonard, Juan Reyes, Sophie Palazzi, and Susanna Sear. This has been an exciting year for the ML department at Burnsville High School. First, a new course has been developed called Academic Language and Literacy Support, which provides high-level language instruction specifically geared towards long-term EL learners. For the first time, over 200 of these EL students are now able to receive literacy instruction focused explicitly on the language demands found in content courses. As a department, we now provide daily services to almost all of the over 450 plus EL students at BHS, undoubtedly leading to student success across all curriculums, as well as on the Access test. This year has also seen some of the best multilingual professional development here at Burnsville High School. Multiple PD hours were devoted to deepening the staff's understanding of what a multilingual learner is, how many there are in classrooms, and how as teachers we can best lean on these students' strengths to improve classroom performance. For the first time, the entire staff was trained and given access to our powerful multilingual learner data management program called Elevation. Through Elevation, the staff now has instant access to students' WIDA levels, as well as individualized instruction supports. These instructional supports provide instant recommendations for teachers' pedagogy and has led to high-quality differentiated instruction, which we also align to our BHS Avid B3 mission this school year. More than any school year before, staff members have approached our ML team, thanking us for Elevation access and telling us the many ways that's enriched their classroom instruction. Thank you for the continued support you provide for our over 1,100 multilingual learners at Burnsville High School.
All right, so now I will turn it over to one of our guests.
Hi, my name is Ryan McCunda, and I am one of the multilingual learner teachers at Harriet Bishop. I would like to share some of the efforts that our building has taken this year to support equity for all students. This school year, our percentage of students who speak another language at home reached 51%, making the majority of families in our building. Given that the demographics of this building have changed rapidly in recent years, our staff has had a remarkable response to the needs of our diverse population. Following the recommendations that came out of our English Learner Program review that took place during the previous school year, our site team at HB has worked to build our capacity to serve newcomer students. We have implemented a new welcome plan for when students arrive, which includes a welcome packet from the office containing important school information, cultural liaison support, and multiple bilingual staff members to assist throughout the student's first day and weeks. The ML team also provides scaffolding and support ideas to classroom teachers to help aid the transition. Our goal from the newcomer's arrival is to create a network of support so they feel safe and connected within the classroom and school community. In addition to student support, our ML site team has conducted professional development for our teachers and district personnel this year. We focused on the EL qualification process, interpreting access scores, communicating to teachers what students can do at their proficiency level, and summarizing applicable scaffolds. Extending this PD, we also presented on how to support students in Tier 1 instruction to increase their access to content and better meet their needs across the whole school day. These differentiated supports provided strategies and skills to target based on students' language level, so that teachers can ensure multilingual learners are able to participate at all stages of language acquisition. Our PD was well received and generated excellent conversations about how to drive student achievement. Overall, this is probably definitely the most important part. A collective building effort guides our ML programming to create equitable systems and instruction for students. There's a strong sense of collaboration among teams and across the whole building, whether in grade level planning, implementing flexible groupings, or supporting core content. Teachers support curriculum such as Haggerty in the ML classroom and through pre-teaching or extension. Our shared responsibility and willingness to adapt has contributed both to our growth as professionals and to students' academic growth. We still have more work to do and will continue to advocate for equity in our programming and use research, resources, and strong teaming to inform our practices in the future. Thank you for the opportunity to share today how important equity is for all learners, including our growing multilingual population.
And then we have Saro Abdullahi, who's going to talk about our Somali heritage and culture class.
Good evening, Chair Miller, Superintendent Dr. Battle, and esteemed members of the board. I'm Sarah Abdullahi. I'm one of the EL teachers at Burnsville High School and the Somali Heritage teacher at the high school. In our classroom, we celebrate diversity through Somali Heritage course, a journey that delves into the linguistic, geography, religion, history, cuisine, and vibrant culture of Somalia. This endeavor is not merely educational, it's a tribute to the rich tapestry of Somali heritage woven into the fabric of America. By fostering the Somali language, culture, and honoring ancestral history, we cultivate. Can you guys hear me? I'm not. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. We cultivate. empathy, and build multicultural community within our classroom. Our offering Somali Heritage Language Course 2 will cater to the 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade student. This course is designed to reflect the cultural ethos of Somali society, empowering students to deepen their understanding of Somali heritage and language. Through this course, students will achieve multiple objectives: develop proficiency in reading, writing, listening, and speaking Somali, cultivate appreciation for the Somali arts, history, culture, and literature, engage in projects for Somali art history, engage in projects centered around Somali history and family origin biannually, gain awareness of the cultural, social, linguistic diversity, enhance biliteracy in Somali through comprehensive language exercises. Additionally, students may opt to undertake the Minnesota Seal of Multiliteracy exam, showcasing their proficiency in Somali and potentially earning college credits. As we embark on creating the Somali Heritage Course 2, our current efforts include conducting research, gathering resources for a year-long program, seeking collaboration with Somali educators nationally and internationally, developing weekly lesson plans tailored to the curriculum, translating all material from English to Somali. And the reason I say that is I found a lot of books written by Somali people, but it's written in English. So now I'm teaching Somali, so I have to take that and translate it into Somali. And then aligning content with Minnesota language targets and ensuring accessibility via platforms like Schoology and Google Sites. Tailoring lessons to accommodate diverse student needs, which focus on strengthening its writing skills, an area often requiring particular attention for heritage language learners. And recognizing the individual needs of each student, I'm committed to addressing their unique needs as we prepare for the upcoming academic year. In closing, I express my enthusiasm and continued development of the Somali heritage, and I thank you for allowing me this opportunity to share the progress and aspiration for next year.
And then the only other item that's listed here is that our district is also part of the Southwest Metro Regional Equity Summit, which is a partnership. I think it started I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but we're a part of it now. And so we do have 5 groups or individuals who are presenting at the summit this June, and the registration is just opening. And so I'll be sharing that in the board update if you're interested in attending. It really is a summit that's put together by teachers in the various districts or staff in the various districts. So it's not about bringing in other voices. It's about us learning from each other. And so I encourage you to join in to meet some people from some of our South Metro districts. And so that's the end of our summary. It's every time. Thank you. And then I don't know if you have any questions or.
Yep, thank you very much. Any questions or comments from board members? Go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you four so much for coming out tonight. And I know that, especially as a school district, we are in a very unique position knowing that we are a majority minority school, which I think is truly the pride and the heart of what makes our space so unique and amazing, and just, something that makes me really happy to say as I look forward to the next chapter of my life too. So I really appreciate all the work and efforts that you folks have been putting in, especially you, Director Buchanan. I know that this is one of the first times that our school district is really implementing into equity or educational equity too. There's so much work still to be done as seen in the presentation, but I think we're leading into a really good direction with what work we have so far. So thank you.
And I would just agree that it's all about collective efficacy. I don't know in your different careers and what you do, but just like Ms. Makunda said, like when people are working together, right, and they start to see that this is working, more students are getting it, or more staff are feeling like they have the strategies to help support students, it does just create a synergy that, that just helps everyone keep going and know that, yes, there's still work for us to do, but you see the progress because we're all putting in the work in those little steps that we take each day.
If I can add one quick comment as well, just a shout out to my students. Last year at Harriet Bishop, we exited 29, I think it was, elementary students, and the building with the next closest was, I think, 11. And that just speaks to their willingness to work hard and apply themselves, and also all of the staff supporting them, that they don't just get support from their multilingual learner teachers, they get support in their classrooms as well. And we shared some of them at a staff meeting and just celebrated them for all of their wonderful, amazing work.
And it's people learning from each other. We're not reinventing the wheel, but we're saying like this works. And teachers, like at Harriet Bishop, the teachers were leading training to other teachers at their site about what are strategies in second grade at this language level, and how can you enhance and support that. And so I also feel that I would like to lift up our multilingual teachers in our district because they have taken on a great role of leadership and support as well, because it is hard to learn new things. But right now, our district isn't where we were 10 years ago. And so we need to make sure that we're embedding a lot of the practices in our core instruction.
Go ahead, Director Ward.
Sarah, I have a question for you. So are there other districts that have a Somali heritage class, or is that something unique to our district now, or?
There's other districts that have Minneapolis and St. Cloud. I contacted them and collaborated with their teachers. So but we're the only district that have an actual teacher teaching it, and they have community members teaching it. And so it's different. Ours is built as a language class. Also, I'm providing the cultural background, history background. So that is a little bit different, but they build the curriculum, and their equity people are in part of it, building it. And cultural liaison, I think, has been teaching for St. Cloud. That person left, and now they have another person that came from the community education teaching it.
That's really exciting to hear that we have that in our district, and I'm just very happy that you did that work, and I want to commend you for that. How much is the enrollment in that class? How many students?
Well, it was busting at the seams.
I'm laughing because Dr. Bellman, I went to visit. Was it last week?
So I have 82 in one and 81 in, not 42 in one class, not 82. Thank God.
Standing room only?
Not that much busting.
Standing around, no. 42 in one and then 41 in one class, yeah. So hopefully next year we have level 1 and level 2, and we'll see, yeah.
That's great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Just go ahead, Director Alt.
Well, Sarah, I'd like to thank you for taking the class and the students under your wing. I know our families appreciate the work. You're connecting our students to their culture and their history, and again, building community, which is so very important. So thank you for that. And also, thank you for bringing the statistics on the actual number of multilingual students in our district. That is really something to celebrate. In addition to knowing how many students are receiving services, it's just wonderful to know how many multilingual students we have. Just one question, I think. So on slide 11, under attract, support, retain diverse staff, just wondering if you can elaborate on, adapting the application and hiring process to remove institutionalized barriers. What kind of work do we need to do there?
So I think some of this, is working with our human resource team. And so it's really looking at some of those components or pieces where people have to click this and attach that, and being able to sometimes And actually, in all honesty, like, look at applicants who are in the process of submitting applications, because, like, I can honestly say, like, our Indigenous Cultural Liaison, there's a lot of research out there that a lot of applicants may apply to positions, but they won't submit because they're not sure, you know, that they're qualified for the positions. And actually, not just ignoring it because you see it, you'll see a red not submitted button, but you can still see the answers and the responses that have already been created. And to me, some of our reaction is to, like, look at what was already submitted and say, that looks very interesting, like you might have what we need. And then I just sent an email saying, hey, you know, if you're really interested in this, finish your application by this date. So it's not that we have to, like, adapt the whole process, but it's not ignoring things like that, so that, or like if someone attaches something but it doesn't show up, because technology sometimes attaching PDFs, instead of saying, oh, they don't have all the materials, you know, like, I feel like a part of our work is to, you know, build that bridge too, to help, like, if we're seeking out diverse candidates, you know, that we have to not be so rigid in the systems and the structures, but to really work at making sure we have the information we need in order to, you know, find applicants for the roles that we have in our district. I don't know if Director Stovine
I
has
can add a little. So it can be some simple things as minimum requirement and preferred. I actually talked to a candidate of color for a Director Buchanan's job who didn't submit and followed up and why, and just felt that it didn't match perfectly, so why would I submit? So it's very interesting when you talk to candidates of how they perceive our application process. So I don't know if Executive Director Sovine wants to tell more, but we learn a lot from principals too, how we can better the system.
And parents within our system who've
Yes.
had employment. You know, like, sometimes it might be the school helping the parent submit the application and scan the document so they can attach the PDF, because if you don't have a computer,
Right.
there are phone apps that do it too. But chances are, you know, that's just a lot of extra hoops. And so how do we help remove some of those barriers and make it so that people are able to share information? And knowing what we know about applicants of color, maybe starting to fill out applications and not feeling they meet every single, you know, item that's listed there, still encouraging people to, like, submit and complete, because, I don't know, I always err on the side of let's interview and get to know people as much as we can, because then you can always have more than one round of interviews, but you can see a real human being versus an application, you know?
And then another barrier, it may not be a fit for your particular position, but you're a system leader, and so you think, oh, I know that department's looking for somebody, so to tell them about that person.
Right.
So those are some of the institutional barriers, and our HR department is always refining and trying to, because as you know, employees, especially 30-somethings, they have choices. And they know they're in demand, and so you really have to adapt. Okay, hope that
Thank you.
answers.
Question, any other questions, comments? Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time tonight. Excellent presentation. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to receive a report about community feedback on the fiscal year 25 budget from Superintendent Dr. Teresa Battle and Executive Director of Administrative Services, Stacy Sovine.
Thank you, Chair Miller and members of the board. So we're going to give you an update. Our survey has closed. We had a series of school meetings with staff as well as with parent groups conducted by our principals. We also had a public meeting. Unfortunately, we did not have any attendees, but did have the Spanish-speaking parent meeting, got their feedback. So we're just going to review the timeline. the feedback, and then some minor changes since the last time I presented my preliminary budget. And I'll turn it over to Executive Director Stacy Sovine.
Thank you, Dr. Battle, Chair Miller, members of the board. Before I get started, just jumping on the conversation that was previously occurring with the other presentation, just to let you know, on every application or posting that we put out there, we include this paragraph that studies have shown that women and people of color are less likely to apply for jobs unless they believe they meet every one of the qualifications as described in a job description. We are most interested in finding the best candidate for the job, and that candidate may be one who comes from a less traditional background. We would encourage you to apply, even if you don't believe you meet every one of our qualifications described. So this is included on each of our postings. So we are putting that out there that we want people to apply, even if they don't necessarily feel that they fit every one of the qualifications. And so we do encourage that as far as removing barriers. And it is a narrow path that we are weaving. We are not lowering the rigor of the candidates in which we are selecting. We want to make sure we are bringing on board the best candidates, ones in which we have thoroughly looked into background checks, and that we are bringing on board that are going to be the best fit for our students. So that's a fine, we're not lowering the rigor, but we are encouraging folks to apply. So with that, I will now transition into our budget presentation here. I am going to make the most of this and savor it, as it is my last budget presentation of this fiscal year. I'll be handing it over to Director of Finance, Tyler Denny, in June, who will actually be presenting the work that the Finance Department has done in presenting the budget. I believe last year we were close to a little over 200 pages. If you need more, please let me know in advance so that they can start working on that. But at this point in time, I will, like I said, make the most of my last presentation. The agenda, just kind of the timeline, what's affecting our budget, current reality, our approach. Again, these are the slides that you have seen before. We are at that point wrapping up here in April, May, the board report on feedback, presenting that to you. As I had mentioned, the finance team will take over at this point and bring the actual numbers to you in June. June 13th will be the presentation of the draft, and June 20th will be the adopted budget for your approval. We do need to adopt a budget prior to the end of this fiscal year, June 30th, so that we can function moving forward for fiscal year 25. Just put this out there again as a reminder, nearly $8.5 million of COVID relief funds will be leaving the system at the end of this fiscal year. The bulk of our COVID funds, the 160, will be gone. They'll be gone at the end of June. We will have a little bit of run out, which is the 161. That's your community ed summer programming types of stuff. Those will all be done by the end of August, and we will not leave a cent on the table. So we are moving the money around to allowable expenses to make sure that we are maximizing everything that we received during the COVID relief time. Our enrollment, again, drives our revenue for the district. We are looking at about 7,000 students for next year, K-12. That's a modest decline of about 220 students from this year to next year. As you can see, the progression of our enrollment over the past few years. We are hoping actually for another year where we could see a flat enrollment. That goes a long ways when it comes to budget conversations. We have presented before that the state and the federal government are not keeping up with the inflationary increases that are presented or that the school districts are facing. We have increased revenue, which is fairly modest. On the left column, we've gone through that. And then our increased expenses on the right side. One thing I want to point out, and I know the board is well aware of this, but this is a common misperception, that when we talk about a 2.5% increase to our salary schedule, that is not a 2.5% raise. Okay? Salary schedules have built-in raises. Public employees, specifically school districts, have salary schedules. So year over year, they have an increase. If you were to look at the average increase in one unit plus the 2.5% on top of that, that unit would be looking at 4.25% each year for the last 2 fiscal years. A 4.25% increase in salary each year. So 2.5% is not the raise. That's an increased value to the schedule. The raise is already built in. I know you folks know that. I also know that a lot of folks walk away and they don't necessarily understand that. So it's good to kind of point that out for our public. Then you see all the other expenses that are built in for the district as we're looking in our budget. For somebody that really wants to savor this, I feel like I'm rushing, so I apologize. Strategies for structurally sustainable budget. Again, we are continuing with instructional priorities, including our K-12 pathways, maintaining current class size parameters. We have not modified our class sizes, even through some fairly significant budget reductions over the past few years. It's been almost 10 years now since we've adjusted our class sizes. So we've been able to maintain that and still maintain that even though $8.5 million is going away next year. Maintain balance in expenditures and revenue for restricted funds. Use our restricted funds before general undesignated funds wherever possible, and understand the ebb and flow of revenue streams and expenses. As folks like to help us remember, plan ahead for the things that are happening in the future. So as the administrative team, we are definitely trying to plan ahead and give the board lots of options. So, initial input survey summaries. My partner.
Thank you, Stacy. I'll take you through the next couple of slides. This is one the board has actually seen. Of course, at the beginning of the budget process, we asked people for their input, the community and staff members, as well as administrators. This just gives us a sense of what's important to them, what they want us to be thinking about, and what's working for them going into the budget process. And then after the superintendent presents her initial budget for the year, recommendation for the year, we asked people to give feedback on that, and you can see that feedback here kind of summed up anyway. Some of the most important points or most repeated points. We did receive 47 responses to our online feedback form. Schools held, as you can see, 27 staff and family meetings. Departments also shared the information with staff and encouraged feedback. And I can say for sure that of those 47 responses, there was a good mix of community members and staff members as well. So staff were using that opportunity as well. We asked basically 3 questions, open-ended questions, to get a sense of people's reactions to the proposed budget. What are the positives? What are the challenges that you see? And what are questions that you have? You can see the positives. Maintaining class size is something people appreciate. The additional EL support. We got a report tonight about multilingual students and supporting them and how important that is. And then challenges. Some of these are general concerns. Some of them are specific asks. Always whenever there are large class sizes, that's a concern that people have. The maintaining and compensating staff and managing student behaviors with current staff. Again, that's information that the board has and that the district continues to try to address. The questions can be really helpful in terms of how we're going to communicate about the budget and helping us going forward. What questions are out there? What things don't people quite understand or aren't being clear? So, for instance, why are we prioritizing advanced learning? We've got those additional positions that are called advanced learning specialists. We probably didn't label them as clearly. Those are there to help support pathways as well at the elementary level. And so that's something we need to communicate. How can we work together to advocate for more funding? That's something we try to do, is include staff and community on the legislative agenda, and we can continue to do that going forward. So that's some of the feedback that we received, and we'll continue to work with it going forward.
Thank you. So a couple of adjustments to our last presentation as far as our initial. We've had a couple of employment changes that are coming across the table. Again, when it works in operations, anytime that we have a resignation, we do look at our needs within that department and make adjustments. So earlier this spring, we made some changes to our banking services. That saved us $50,000. Then as we are, our finance manager, project manager, they're leaving at the end of June. That's freeing up about $53,000. And then in replacing that position, we're wanting to move in an accountant, a finance accountant. This person would continue to manage our bank recs, work primarily with the banking services. Also, there are a lot of rebates that can occur through what we call our P cards. So when we are maximizing our P cards in the way in which we're using those, if somebody is monitoring that, we can actually improve our rebates that we're receiving on those. So it's kind of like the cashback deal. That's what that comes back to. So even though we're making some changes in those areas, we're still looking at a savings of $18,000 overall. Those are pretty much the major revisions. We had some title revisions, naming revisions. One of those was in our community ed area. During the time that we brought you the initial, our community ed department was going through and presenting a redesign model. So they didn't actually have titles or the correct labels that they wanted for the positions at that time. At this point in time, as we're moving forward, those labels, those positions have been updated to reflect what we're looking at. Okay, so we've updated our budget, our initial budget form. There's a PDF online for the public. Again, we're looking at approximately $2.4 million in reductions. We'll have about another $500,000 that is continuing where we're going through, and again, back to that idea of restricted, the ESSER. Anywhere that we can say, you know what, this meets the criteria, we're going to recode something into those areas to free up our unassigned, which will help us come in at our 16.5% reserve, our fund balance for unassigned. Those are the types of things that I'm mentioning there. And again, we're looking at bringing you a projected budget that will come in roughly at about 16.5%, where it's a mix of reductions as well as some spend down of your fund balance. It's about an even combination of both, and we're trying to do this in an incremental way over the next few years. Not too much, not too fast. Wait to see what happens with enrollment, wait to see what happens with funding from the state, but kind of in a very measured, monitored approach that we will be doing this over the next couple of years.
All right, thank you. Any questions, comments from board members, please? Yes, ma'am?
Just want to make one note for our finance department. We checked in, still waiting on the state to give us their runs. What if? So just looking forward for that so the finance team can really ramp up to prepare for that June. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, up next, we'll receive a report about the Early Childhood Special Education Stretch Calendar from Christine Wozniak, Special Education Supervisor.
Hi, good evening, Chair Miller, Dr. Battle, and members of the board. I'm here to present the 2024-25 stretch calendar on behalf of our Birth to 3 early intervention program. Following referral of our youngest learners, ages birth to 3, our early intervention team is required to complete an evaluation and set up a family service plan for our youngest learners within 45 calendar days. This calendar provides the flexibility for the team to meet those federal and state timelines. So I don't know if it's up here or,
I don't know. Tim, can you show the calendar?
must not be up there. Do you have a copy of it?
We do. Yes.
Okay. We
do.
And it'll be available in board.
Sorry.
Okay.
Oh.
The board packet if necessary, if someone wants to review. Any questions or comments about it for the board members tonight?
I just want to clarify. So this doesn't change the number of days they would work in a year. It just spreads it out over, I mean, that's why it's called a stretch calendar.
Yeah,
presumably.
correct.
It just
Yep.
spreads out the number of days they work.
Yep, so they can meet those timelines.
Right. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I guess I would just, for the benefit of those, most of us, since we don't usually see this very often, ask, is there anything that we should make note of, major changes of any sort? Or? Okay. All right, then thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, at this point, we're going to move to community reports. This again is, tonight we'll be doing board committee appointments or school assignments. So I'll just call through the standing committees to begin with. Legislative, I know Director Chester is not present. Either Connor or Werb, are you capable of giving a brief overview of any recent activity in the legislative
There
committee?
was no meeting.
Right.
There's been no meeting?
It was
Very good.
canceled.
Very good. That'll cover that. Policy, Director Marcel.
Yes, we had a meeting on this past Tuesday, the 23rd, and we had gone through a number of policies that will be coming to the board in future meetings, and our next meeting is going to be on May 21st.
Excellent. Negotiations, Director Alt.
Yes, thank you. We meet with the mediator on Monday, the 29th, and that completes my report.
Okay. I would just recommend or remind everybody with the negotiations that all of the documentation around it is transparently available on the ISD 199 website. We'll move into other board committees. I won't read through all of these, but are there any specific board committee assignments?
Yes.
Go ahead.
The AMSD meeting for April 5th. They just had a state legislator and House of Representative present some bills, some proposed bills for the 2024 and 2025 year. And their names were Representative Ben Bakeberg. Okay, thank you. Bakeberg. And Sandra Feist. Okay. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Anyway, the proposed bills are teachers, interns focused on special education, absenteeism and truancy in schools, school design policy for students with cell phones, a 4-day school week, discipline in schools, school safety, and the legislators gave, they want to have a proposal to give the school boards more freedom to govern their own funding needs, because each district has their own funding needs as opposed, each district has their own needs. And so not collectively them trying to delegate what we spend it on. And another proposal, the legislature would spend at least 12 hours in schools themselves, which I thought was really interesting, so they can get a better handle on what they're actually dealing with and what schools are dealing with, and make it easier for teachers to get licensed, and last of all, more funding on the READ Act. Those were some of their proposals. And that completes my report.
Okay, thank you very much. Hearing no other committee or board reports, this will conclude the information portion of our meeting. We will now move to the business portion of our meeting. We'll start by approving the consent agenda. Although board action is required, it is generally unnecessary to hold a discussion on these items. In the event a board member wishes to discuss an item, that item will be moved for separate consideration. Do any board members wish to remove any items from the consent agenda this evening? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Director Werb.
Second.
Seconded by Director Hume. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The motion carries unanimously. New business then. In the first item under new business, we are being asked to adopt a resolution terminating non-licensed staff hours at the end of the 2023-24 school year. Presenting the resolution will be Stacy Sovine, Executive Director of Administrative Services.
Good evening again. Similar to last week when we took action on our licensed staff, every spring we go through the process of adjusting staffing for our non-licensed positions as well. First recommendation I'm bringing forward, buildings will end up having different needs where it's like, I actually need somebody that's going to be maybe more of a level 3 EA to help with instruction and behavior. I don't need so much necessarily for the lunch or the recess supervision. So they may cut back, and they may reallocate into a different area. They may have a vacancy, so they reduce one area to make another area more attractive as they can try to post and bring folks on board. So this first one is just the adjustment with the hours, and this process is probably the most difficult one every spring, because it's just constantly changing almost right up until the last moment. So I apologize for the updates that you've been receiving for this over the week, but we wanted to make sure that we brought to you the most accurate information as it is at this point in time. So with that, be it resolved by the School Board of Education of School District 191 pursuant to Minnesota Statute 122A.40 that the non-licensed personnel in independent school district be terminated at the end of the 23-24 school year. Be it further resolved that written notice is sent to said non-licensed staff regarding termination of their assignments for the 23-24 school year as provided by law.
Okay. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution terminating non-licensed staff hours at the end of the school year?
So moved.
Moved by Director Alt,
Second.
seconded by Director Werb. Is there any discussion on the matter? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay, and the motion carries unanimously. Next, we're being asked to adopt a resolution terminating non-licensed staff at the end of the 2023-24 school year. Stacy Sovine, Executive Director of Administrative Services, will be presenting this resolution.
This one is a little bit different. This is the removal of the entire position for folks. This crosses more than just education assistants. This crosses into the category of all non-licensed staff. Some of these are reflecting of our budget adjustments that we talked about a little bit earlier, as far as the type of positions that were covered under ESSER that are going away. Some of them were temporary positions when they were hired because the allocation that was provided to the building, they wanted to use that in a particular way for this year. But, they're resetting, if you will, again, going into next year. Some of the educational assistants that we have listed here under the federal law are not highly qualified. So we've worked with them. We tried to get them up to speed to where they either could go through the profiles, where they could go through college credits, take a para-pro test, a number of different things that we attempted to try to get them to that point. Was unable to bring them across the line, so those folks were releasing at this point. So again, just a number of different listings here, a number of different reasons why folks are being released. But with that, be it resolved by the Board of Education of School District 191 pursuant to Minnesota Statute 122A.40 that the non-licensed personnel in Independent School District 191 be terminated at the end of the 23-24 school year. Be it further resolved that written notice is sent to said non-licensed staff regarding termination of their assignment for the 23-24 school year as provided by law.
Is there a motion to adopt a resolution terminating non-licensed staff at the end of the school year?
So moved.
Moved by Director Hume,
Second.
seconded by Director Alt. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The motion carries unanimously. Having heard a report about the early childhood special education stretch calendar earlier this evening, I now invite Christy Wanzek, Special Education Supervisor, back to present a recommendation to approve the ECSE stretch calendar.
I am making the recommendation for the board to approve the 24-25 birth to 3 stretch calendar.
Is there a motion to adopt the now it's backwards, ESCE stretch calendar for the 2024 school year? Either way, the calendar in question.
So moved.
Moved by Director Alt,
Seconded.
seconded by Director Hume. Is there any discussion in the matter? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, so next on our agenda is going to be to move to a work session to discuss a request for posting a labor acknowledgement. The time is now 8:23, and before we begin our work session, I move that we take a brief recess and return to the dais at, let's call it 8:35 p.m. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The motion carries unanimously. Please return to the dais at 8. All right, so we're all present. We'll return from our recess, excuse me. As a point of order, before we continue to our planned agenda, I'm going to offer an amendment to modify tonight's agenda. Having reviewed it, it seems that it's not necessary for us to have the closed session as planned. So I move that we modify tonight's agenda to remove the closed session that was to discuss labor negotiation strategy. I need a second.
Second.
Second by Director Alt. All those in favor to modify tonight's agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those in favor say nay. The modification passes. So now, having a modified agenda, I now move to adopt the modified agenda for tonight. So I need a second for that.
Second.
Second by Director Connor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Disagree, nay. The modified agenda is now, passes unanimously and is now adopted. So now we will move to the work session. This evening, we've been asked by Director Connor to have a conversation around a request for posting of labor acknowledgement, and I'm going to turn it over to Director Connor to lead the conversation as it is her request. Go ahead, Director.
Okay, thank you. As some of you may remember, I have brought this up before in the past. I went my second year in this term. I went to a class which the initials are FREC, but it means Facilitating Racial Equity Collaborative. It's an 8-week series class. Very interesting. I think it was $20 because it talked about all different subjects in schools, in the community, in your own different cultural existences for different cultures. And then they broke into, they always had a presenter that would talk about 5 or 10 minutes, and then they would break off into little groups and just discuss it. People would ask questions that maybe they were a little, or didn't know who to ask or how to ask. But in a small group of 3 or 4 people, they felt, well, you know, I really always wondered this, or I really always wondered this about this culture, or about black people, or about, you know, Native Americans, or Somalian people. And so, it was just a real safe environment to ask questions, and it was a very good learning experience. I learned I learned a lot of different aspects that I never knew about how European people thought and how they saw different cultures. And so it was very surprising and very rewarding also to just learn different aspects of how people think about different people's cultures and how they see things. Just like, I never even thought about that. Or somebody would say, I didn't know that. And we found that there are more similarities than differences in how people think, but of course, you know, still different aspects because of ages and because of the where you live and that type of thing. Just geographic areas make a lot of difference too. So I just thought it was very informative. And what I learned there is about the land acknowledgement and the labor acknowledgement. Before every series, they would always have us recite that. And I thought it was kind of interesting. And so I know our Native American culture thought it very important to put up their land acknowledgement, and I thought since I learned them together, it was just as important to put up the labor acknowledgement because to me they go together. And if this Facilitating Racial Equity Collaborative thought it was important to say them together, then I don't understand why we would separate them. I really wanted not just my voice to be heard on this, though. I really tried to use our student liaison to talk to maybe some students in the school, African-American students, just to see how they felt about it, to see, you know, if I could have some backing too, like our Native American community. He didn't get back to me necessarily on it, but I don't want to just go into a school and start, you know, I don't feel like that's my place. So I might have to visit that later. But anyway, since some of you don't know what the labor acknowledgement is about, I have copies of it so you can hear it. Does anybody want the land acknowledgement too, which is already posted up there? I have that too if you want to just reference it.
No, that's okay.
But anyway, I even saw a video on YouTube where former President Trump even acknowledged this land acknowledgement, which I was surprised, and I thought, is that real? But I looked at it myself, and it didn't look like his mouth was moving to words. It looked like he really was saying this actual land acknowledgement. And you can look it up on YouTube yourself. You can just look up President Trump stating African people and the beginning of the country, or just something like to that effect. And I think that's what I looked up and I saw it. But some of the reasons why I feel it's important is because I believe all cultures need to be represented, and it kind of, for me, but I'm an adult, I'm not a student, that's why I really wanted their input, but it just kind of honors another culture. Besides Native American, it honors the African American culture. And that way they can see themselves throughout the building. And it's just also morally inclusive, because it's otherwise we're kind of putting one culture over another if you kind of divide the two. But that's my opinion. There was also and I think separating these acknowledgments discredits one ethnic heritage over the other, which we don't want to disregard, because that's not part of our sorry, sometimes I forget sentences, but that's not part of our focus. Okay, that's not what our district is about. I saw an article that reminded me of some things. It was it's by Pat Rupp. It was in the Burnsville Sun, and he just mentioned that these are some things that he wished he'd learned in high school, and I agree with all his points. And one of them was historic American history, not black history, not European history, not Native American history, but American history. I wish I had really learned that. And I think a lot of students, now this I do know for a fact when I was teaching in the schools, that a lot of kids do want to know American history, all of it, not just bits and parts and pieces, and then as they grow up, they find out things later and then they're surprised, like I was. So I think it's very important that we teach American history, all of history, for all cultures, along with financial literacy. So like teach them investing and how to invest, and how the credit market, the stock market works, and how credit works. And then also just fundamentals of how everything works, like home economics, industrial arts. These are things that he's saying that he wished he had learned in high school, and me also, besides the cultural history. Also, just a couple other things, not just physical education, but actually teaching children nutrition. And that, for example, did we know that a 20-ounce Coca-Cola contains approximately 40 grams of sugar? And it even says that on the can. And so that equals, what did he say? It's roughly 1/10 of a pound of sugar. So just things like that. Plus, you can use it to clean the battery acid off your car thing too, off your those nuts and bolts of your battery in your car. So things like that they need to know about nutrition, not just gym and exercise, which is all good too. And then most importantly, in these days and times, our students need to learn about conflict management, which is we see happening a lot. So just to conclude. My opinion, hopefully it's not too harsh, but I just feel that history needs to be taught, and taught with compassion, cultural compassion, and we just need to make sure we're not discrediting one over another. So I just feel very strongly about separating these acknowledgments, and that's why I'm presenting it to you. That concludes my presentation of what I wanted to say. Thank you for your time.
Okay. It is a work session, so I'll just open it up for comments or questions.
I guess I'll start. Just one clarifying question.
Mm-hmm.
So, Tony, you're looking, just unpacking what you said, you're looking strictly for a labor acknowledgement, not looking to change curriculum in the schools. Am I understanding you correctly?
Well, no, that was just kind of a sidebar too, that it's important that I think we should teach that in school, history in school. But no, my main thing was just I don't think the land and the labor acknowledgements should be separated. I think if one is posted, the other one should be posted. and because they were learned together and they were bought together. And I think one is just as important as the other. So that's really my main focus and criteria of just asking about this, because it just seems no one else is kind of representing that group.
Got it. So I did actually do some research on this to see, what labor acknowledgments were out there. And I think this probably is specific to the group that you were studying with. And for sure, agreed that the history of slavery of African Americans represents a dark part of American history. And the reverberations of this history carries forward to present day.
Small part.
I am, however, thankful for the rich curricula in our classrooms that share this history with our students. I'm also thankful that this same curriculum keeps alive the experience of other BIPOC and other unprotected groups who have been disenfranchised in U.S. history. Our children are much more knowledgeable as a result. And with intentionality, our students can hopefully avoid repeating past and similar mistakes as it relates to slavery and racism. In my mind, I do have questions about the labor acknowledgement. It's used mostly in my research at post-secondary whose campuses benefited directly from slavery and history. 191 schools, on the other hand, were built by paid labor.
By what?
By paid labor. Understanding that history has many examples of unpaid labor, I'm not really sure how we limit ourselves solely to labor as defined in this statement. We have Japanese internment camps, we have child labor, we have the indigenous native peoples that have been enslaved going back to colonial times. We have captive unpaid labor, again going back to colonial times. So for me, I am most comfortable with maintaining a singular spotlight on our local culture, on our local indigenous culture, presented to us by our APEC committee, and the land acknowledgement that resides within our buildings.
But the land acknowledgement is for Dakota County, so it's not just our areas. It's for Minneapolis, Hennepin County. It's a lot of counties. It's not just our little district. So that's not just our area. They're mentioning Dakota County because we're in Dakota County, but it's, Fort Snelling is not Dakota County, so it's everywhere. Okay, and then, like I said, I think for me, it looks like you're concentrating on just the labor. I'm just concentrating on a cultural group that should be represented just like our Native American group is represented, that's all.
And I hear you.
So, and I have not been in the schools since before COVID. I was there right before COVID, and then afterwards I did not go back. I was on the school board, but I did not see when I was teaching Avid that these kids were learning any of that. And they did have assignments for Avid. Well, what I was suggested in Ms. Thompson's class is instead of, on Black History Month, instead of us celebrating Black History Month, that we just celebrate all cultures. And I said, so that can be your assignments. Everybody just, bring something from your culture assignment, that's your Avid assignment. And it went over so well. The kids were so involved. And we had a girl from South Africa talk about her country and what was going on there in these days and times. And nobody knew that. I didn't know that. I'm not going to repeat everything that she said, but it was, so it was a lesson to us all. Somebody else, I believe he was Hispanic or something. I'm not sure. But anyway, he bought food, his cultural food, from his parents' restaurant, and gave them to everybody. And it was food that I did not know the name of, neither did. So it's like, I don't see that they're learning different cultures. I don't see that they're learning American history. Maybe since I haven't been back they are, but I don't see that in the schools. It seems like it's still the same old textbooks in history of what they're learning, which is maybe well, you know. they
We
touch
have
on slave-
Doctors Battle and Belmont to talk about curriculum that's being taught in
Yeah.
our schools.
They touch on the Civil War and they touch on slavery a little bit, and
So,
then that's it. But
I'll tell
there's
you-
so much more.
Yes, so there has been now a revision of the social studies standards that's finally been adapted. And then also our professional educational licensing board came out with new professional standards in 2023 that actually emphasize what you're asking for. And I'll just give you an example, that we're preparing for all teachers to have in their classroom. So the teacher has to create opportunities for students to learn about power, privilege, intersectionality, systemic oppression in the context of various communities, empowers learners to be agents of social change to promote equity. So I wouldn't say we haven't taught that before, because the previous social studies standards did require that in our American history. But specifically about the labor acknowledgement, that will be explicit in our curriculum going forward. We have a committee, now that the social studies standards have been revised, will be starting in the fall. And their plan is to actually have more. The state legislature also required some ethnic studies courses. And so I'll leave it at that for Dr. Belmont to talk about before the social studies revision, what we were teaching in our classrooms.
Well, I think you aptly challenge us, Director Connor, because we have work to do, and the state is also challenging us with expectations, including the new inclusion of the ethnic studies course, which we are also looking towards our College in the Schools African American History course to help inform some of our alignment, so that all students
Right, good, because
are learning.
it shouldn't just be African American culture. It should just be history, American history, everything that happened in American history. Like she said, did you say Asian?
Japanese.
The Japanese, Chinese.
And I'm
the,
grateful to
Holocaust, all of that. We never learned about. I didn't. Well, that was too many years ago, so I won't. I won't say that for me. But yeah, I didn't see the kids knowing about any of that. And if they learned it, then I don't know. Why weren't they tested on it or something? It was just never mentioned. Everybody was totally surprised about anything to do with history. Yeah. And these were 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. That I was in avid with. So I was just like, oh gosh, you guys don't know this stuff. But I didn't learn it at that age either. But of course, mine was 100 years ago. So, but they still don't seem to know it now. That's what I was concerned about. Now, maybe in the last 3 years since I've been out of the school system, but I'm glad. Like I said, I'm so happy with the direction we're going to. I've mentioned that to a lot of the people in the community that are also concerned about that. I said, we're going in the right direction. I said, it takes some time, but we're going in the right direction.
Also, I'd just offer our student affinity groups, they're as much about belonging and agency as they are also about teaching empathy and understanding across our systems.
So if I could, I'm going to nudge us back to the agenda item tonight,
Yeah.
was the request to discuss the application of the labor acknowledgement in our schools in some form. I believe you meant physically in the schools. If I'm wrong, correct me. I don't disagree that our curriculum has opportunity for improvement, and I'm sure Dr. Battle and Dr. Belmont could work with you to elaborate on that at a separate time. But to the labor acknowledgement itself, I understand we were talking about curriculum as the labor acknowledgement would assist in that, but I think we need to separate those topics.
Yeah.
For me, again, the labor acknowledgement speaks truth to a lot of things that are important, but my challenge as putting it in the buildings, in the same application that we've done with the land acknowledgement, is those are not two documents that come from sort of the same place of origin. As Director Alt alluded to, the labor acknowledgement has its origin in schools that were historically literally built by enslaved labor as part of the coming to terms of that. And whereas the land acknowledgement is a much broader I mean, it's used in buildings throughout the state and throughout the country.
Yeah, why is that? Why is one put over the other?
Well, I'm not saying one's put over the other. I'm saying that I believe if you Google land acknowledgement, you're going to get pretty much the same exact statement that we have on the wall here. If you Google labor acknowledgement, you're going to get a variation of many, many conversations around what should be a labor acknowledgement. And my challenge is if we commit to putting something in the classroom, there is no other, to my knowledge, secondary school in our area and for that matter in the country. I don't know what about the country, but certainly significantly that has it currently. We would be a leader in that. And then what happens if there's a decision in a year or two that there's a better labor acknowledgement, or now we've committed to putting those in the classroom and we're changing things. My point is, I don't think that it's not a matter of the subject matter being one over the other. It's a matter of the development of them in their life cycle. I don't know that the labor acknowledgement has reached the level that land acknowledgement has when it became something we placed in our classrooms. I'm not denying that something akin to labor acknowledgement would be appropriate, but I'm saying now is not the time to move forward with that.
Why does it have to be in the classroom, though? Why can't it just be posted
Well,
on
okay,
the wall?
in the building anywhere, because we're stepping behind one set of language and choosing to align ourselves to that when another district, Minneapolis or wherever else, Chicago, whatever, might choose a different set of language, and it just causes too many complications and confusion around it. It's not that I want to disconnect the idea that just because we're saying that doesn't mean that we don't support the concepts behind the document. I think putting them in the building at this point picking one set of language would be a precedent that we don't need to assume as the only district doing it here, or for my knowledge, almost anywhere else.
Well, I think some people would probably think could probably think that the land acknowledgement too could use some updating. I mean, they could go back in history and kind of pick that apart. But my point is, okay, well, I'm not going to argue the point. I just wanted to make that presentation that I learned it at the same time. Those people were from all different districts, from all different areas, and everybody seemed to take it very well. It was new to me, and like I said, nobody thought it was confusing or anything. They just...
And I think it's a value that Dr. Battle mentioned, that and I believe Dr. Battle and Dr. Bellman confirmed that it will be part of the curriculum, correct?
Yeah.
The discussion of its development and what impact it's had.
And then the research. So we did have one of our CSER members do research and couldn't find a K-12, but higher ed and specific places like a theater that was actually built on slave labor. They've also, teachers have looked at what's called labor commitments, which really gets to more specificity, and I'll defer to the social studies teachers. Capitalism, history, contemporary labor, and African diaspora too. So to let you know, our teachers are engaged in this. So it will be a part, and I think it will be topics that our students will grapple with, have conversations about. It won't be just, it's something that's posted, which I'm glad we're doing more of Native American history and culture in our classes also. So I just want to share that commitment to you. Yeah, and it's the plan, just as we plan for that Somali heritage and culture, this is a group that's committed to this also, and all of the new social studies standards. It's quite impressive, the direction we're going in.
I think that's an important point.
It is.
I think from my perspective, I think the sentiment is a really important sentiment. And I think the work we are doing around equity and culture, inclusiveness, that work is so important, and that we have to keep our eye on the proverbial ball, that we know, like, we've spent a lot of time. We had a whole equity presentation earlier this evening about the work that's being done in the district currently. And I think the work that I want to see the district focusing on are the things that are going to have the most impact on our students, on our staff, on our families. So that's kind of what I'm looking at this point, is what can we do that's going to have the most impact? Is it putting a very well-intentioned, well-phrased sign on the wall, or is it investing, continuing to invest in these other things that Dr. Battle was just referencing?
I like the referencing things. But, you know, I just didn't, I just
We all
didn't
want
want.
the same outcome, I think.
Yeah, I just
okay.
didn't want it ignored, because it just seemed like you were, like, it was feeling like it was separated and being, like, oh, well, that's not important, but this is. And I said, that doesn't sit right, because I learned them together.
Right.
But, yeah, what you said, it's great.
Any other comments or questions, thoughts?
Well, I just want to say Dr. Hume had put in, you know, what I was thinking into words with the impact reference. I mean, this is so important, and I really appreciate it, Tony, and thank you for bringing your learnings to us, for us to also learn from.
Thanks.
And for me, you know, I am thinking towards, you know, what has the bigger impact. And I think the curriculum and all the stuff that everybody has mentioned, I think is gonna carry us far, farther than, you know, like
Right.
a sign.
Than a sign.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so, but you touched on very, you know, really great things. And I mean, I've learned a lot already from just the conversation, so thank you.
If you ever take the FREC class, you will learn so much. It's so cool, because everybody just talks so freely. It's such a safe space to get questions answered and share your opinions and listen to other people's opinions. I learned so much. I enjoyed it so much.
That's great. Katie?
Yep, I agree with what everyone else has said, and, you know, I appreciate your passion about it, you know, that it's important to you, and we as a board, we all, you know, care about everybody else's, you know, interests, and, you know, appreciate that you have interest in this, so, you know, but, I mean, I want, you know, our students to understand the meaning behind it too. I mean, I think that is important. But yeah, just, you know, there's a difference between just posting something on the wall and having them really learn the, you know, why was it where did this come from? Really understanding it. So.
Okay. Well, Director Connor, I want to commend you for bringing this forward to our attention and leading this conversation tonight. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time and listening.
Yep, and I want to commend everybody else that this could have been a challenging conversation. I think it was a very healthy conversation. So again, as I've stated before, I thoroughly enjoy the fact that we can have these kind of conversations as a board and not make it contentious.
A pretty reasonable group most of the time.
Sometimes, yes. All right, who had 903?
I had 905. Oh, I had 905.
I never told you, so
I will be.
I was going to say 903.
So that concludes our tonight's agenda, our modified tonight's agenda, and therefore I am calling this meeting of the Board of Education to adjournment. Thank you very much. The time